The World Is Not Enough is a shooter stealth video game based on the James Bond film of the same name. The game was published by Electronic Arts and released for the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation console systems in 2000. Both versions are first-person shooters. A Game Boy Color version of the game, played from a third-person perspective, was developed by 2N Productions and was released in 2001. The Nintendo 64 version was developed by Eurocom and the PlayStation version was developed by Black Ops Entertainment, who had previously developed the James Bond game Tomorrow Never Dies. Eurocom would later go on to develop the Bond games 007, Nightfire and the 2010 remake of GoldenEye. Versions of The World Is Not Enough for the PC and the PlayStation 2 were planned for release in 2000, but were later cancelled. The console versions of the game mark the third appearance of Pierce Brosnan's James Bond. They include his likeness but not his voice. Coming off the lukewarm reception of the previous Bond game, Tomorrow Never Dies, it was decided that The World Is Not Enough would go back to its roots as a first-person shooter, popularized by the success of the Bond game GoldenEye 007. In the Nintendo 64 version, it would also see the reintroduction of the multiplayer portion of the game. Plot: British agent, James Bond must protect Electra King from the evil terrorist Renard. However, it turns out that King is working with Renard to blow up Istanbul with a nuclear submarine in order to take over the world's oil market. Bond must team up with Dr. Christmas Jones to stop their plan. Gameplay: the player controls James Bond in each version of the game. Both the PlayStation version and Nintendo 64 version featured voice acting. Adam Blackwood provided the voice of Bond for the Nintendo 64 version, while Tim Binting voiced Bond for the PlayStation version. John Cleese reprised his role as for both versions of the game. Both versions are played from a first-person perspective. In both versions, before each level begins, Bond receives advice from M, Moneypenny, and R. The player must use a variety of gadgets and weapons to advance through the game. The Nintendo 64 version features 14 single-player levels, as well as multiplayer mode with 4-player support and AI bots. Multiplayer arenas can be unlocked by completing single-player levels within a time limit. Several multiplayer characters are available to choose from, including in Mile 6 Agent, M. Robinson, and Moneypenny. Some characters' health are based on their popularity, or how they are portrayed in the movie. For example, ODDJOB's health is 250, while Max Zirin's is at 200. Jaws has the most health, with 300. Like GoldenEye 007, there are 3 difficulty levels for single-player mode: Agent, Secret Agent, and 00 Agent, with 00 Agent being the hardest. The game supports the Rumble Pack controller accessory, as well as the expansion pack, in which a new video mode called High Color is available in the options menu. The PlayStation version only features 11 single-player levels with 2 levels of difficulty and does not have a multiplayer mode. The PlayStation version contains full-motion video cutscenes from the film before a level starts and when a level is passed, which the Game Boy and Nintendo 64 versions lack due to cartridge size. The Game Boy Color version is played from a third-person top-down perspective, and contains 8 levels. The game includes a password feature, but lacks voice-over acting. Characters: as the game is a direct adaptation of the film of the same name, the characters' likenesses are derived from the archive footage of the motion picture, with all the appearances of the characters are based on the actors and actresses portrayed them in the theatrical film. James Bond, a British secret agent who was sent to uncover the terrorist threat behind the recent attack on MI6 and an influential oil magnate. He's the protagonist of the game, voiced by Adam Blackwood and Tim Binting. Electra King, the daughter of the late oil baron, Sir Robert King. She has recently inherited her father's company, King Industries, and is now being targeted once again by the terrorist Renard, who had kidnapped her years prior. She is voiced by Sumali Montano. Renard, Victor Zokas, better known as Renard the Anarchist, is the main antagonist of the game. Years ago, Renard kidnapped Electra King and held her for ransom. This resulted in M sending 009 to eliminate him. M's failed assassination attempt left Renard with a bullet lodged in his brain which renders him immune to any pain whatsoever. Along with planning to drag the world into total chaos, he additionally desires to exact his revenge on both the head of MI6 and his former kidnapping victim. He is voiced by David Robb. Dr. Christmas Jones, an American scientist, specializing in defusing nuclear bombs or arming them. She teams up with Bond to follow the trail of nuclear bombs stolen by Renard and his men. She is voiced by Karen Pascoe. Valentin Zhukovsky, previously a KGB operative and former foe of Bond's, Zhukovsky is now a Russian arms dealer and runs a caviar factory. Zhukovsky not only knows about Renard's operation, but is somehow involved in it. He is voiced by Adam Blackwood. While Q himself is busy with his retirement research, his personal assistant, R takes over control on the Q branch. He often contacts Bond through earpiece and informs him of the gadgetry he is carrying in his inventory, and where to use them. He is voiced by John Cleese. M, the head of MI6 who opened investigation on Sir Robert King and his daughter's case. Due to her past actions, she is marked for death and has to be protected by Bond. Miss Moneypenny, M's personal secretary, she is often seen concerned about Bond and expresses large interest in him. She is voiced by Henrietta Buss. Critical reception: The World Is Not Enough had very different review scores depending on console, with the N64 being considered to be the best of the adaptation. Many praised the graphics and controls of the game. Aggregating review website Game Rankings and Metacritic gave the Nintendo 64 version 81.03% and 81/100, the PlayStation version 68.25% and 61/100 and the Game Boy Color version 40.00%. The Cincinnati Enquirer called the Nintendo 64 version superior to the PlayStation version because of its level designs, weapons, smarter artificial intelligence, and multiplayer options. IGN enjoyed the Nintendo 64 version for its graphics, gameplay, and voice acting, but was disappointed by the lack of the James Bond theme song, and felt that the multiplayer mode could have been better. GameSpot criticized the Nintendo 64 version for the artificial ignorance of its enemies, as well as the limited intelligence of multiplayer bots and limited weapon options. However, GameSpot offered praise for the game's graphics and sound, as well as the large number of multiplayer levels and modes. Game Revolution also enjoyed the graphics and sound effects, but felt that some of the game's multiplayer modes, such as Capture the Flag, were not necessarily worth playing due to the game only allowing 4 players at a time. GamePro also praised the game's graphics, multiplayer modes, and varied gameplay. Reviewing the PlayStation version, GameSpot was critical of the game for reused gameplay ideas, and noted that some of the game's gadgets are used for such petty purposes that they simply drag the game down. GameSpot also found the lack of multiplayer inexcusable, and criticized the game's repetitive use of the James Bond theme song, as well as its graphics and AI. IGN praised the PlayStation version for its large number of gadgets, but criticized it for a lack of multiplayer, overuse of the James Bond theme song, some bad voiceover work, and absolutely horrible character animations. Game Revolution also criticized the game's AI, as well as its voice acting, but enjoyed the game's music and graphics. GameZone praised the PlayStation version for its smooth gameplay, vocal characterizations, and interactive environments. Allgame praised the Game Boy version for its diverse level designs and its soundtrack, but noted the game's difficulty. See also, Outline of James Bond. References. External links: The World Is Not Enough at Eurocom, The World Is Not Enough at Moby Games, The World Is Not Enough at Moby Games, The World Is Not Enough at Moby Games, The World Is Not Enough at the Internet Movie Database.